Today, we will be talking about difficult conversations, how to discuss what matters most by Douglas Stone, Bruce Patton, Sheila Heen of the Harvard Negotiation Project. And in this case, I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to give you the checklist first. It's going to mention things like reframes and stuff, but that will be part of the rest of the post. So let's go down to that last paragraph, which is difficult conversations checklist. So the first step is prepare by walking through the three conversations. Sort out what happened, where does your story come from, using information, past experience, rules, and then their story, and then this has, uh, what impact has this situation had on you, what might be their intentions, um, what have you each contributed to the problem. Then you understand the emotions. People are going to have emotions. A lot of the times, just addressing the emotions fixes a lot of things. So explore your emotional footprint and the bundle of emotions you experience, and then ground your identity. What is at stake for you, about you? What do you need to accept to be better grounded? Then we get to step 2. Check your purpose and decide whether to raise the issue. So, purpose is, what do you hope to accomplish by having this conversation? Shift your stance to support learning instead of being challenging, defensive, whatever. Sharing instead of being held back, and problem solving instead of focusing on the problem. Focus on the solutions, the contributions, uh, and blame. So blame is going to be a big one, so avoid the blame side of things. And when it comes to blame, it's not 100% one side or another. So just remember that side. So that was the purpose. Then deciding. So in step 2, the second part is deciding uh, the best way to address this issue. Is this the best way to achieve your purpose? Is the issue really embedded in your identity conversation, which we'll get into? There's an identity conversation. Can you affect the problem by changing your contribution? So how can you change your uh, feedback, your response, your blame shifting, all that to the problem? How can you reduce the problem? If you don't raise it, what can you do to help yourself let go? So, well, I've already talked about that serenity prayer. Give me the strength to accept the things I can, or change the things I can, accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. Next we come to is step 3. Start from the third story. So as a mediator, it's always good to have a mediator if two people can't come into the problem, because you have your story, you have their story, and then you have the mediator who has the third story, who can see things and then pretend you are describing a problem as a difference between those stories. So even if it's you talking about your story, try to be that mediator, try to be that third party, the observing ego. Include both viewpoints as legitimate part of the discussion. So both have valid stories. Just because you hold on to yours doesn't mean their story is not as valid, because their reality is very different to yours. Share your purposes. What purposes do both of you have? I need this. I need this, and then invite them to join you as a partner in sorting out the situation together. Step 4, explore their story and yours. Listen to understand. We'll talk about judgment and curiosity. Uh, so, understand their perspective of what happened. Ask questions. Acknowledge the feelings behind the arguments and accusations. So, paraphrase to see if you've got it. Now, I should share a speaker listener technique link here. Try to unravel how the two of you got into this place. A technique to talk without fighting, because One person says everything, the other person doesn't reply or doesn't listen to reply. They listen to understand by first repeating exactly what they said in a way they chewed it and digested it and understood it. Share your own viewpoint, your past experience, intentions, and feelings. Now, sometimes you might not have good intentions. Every now and then, I know, and I'm very good at acknowledging that my intention was to hurt the person after they didn't listen to me after my third strike because of my three strike rule. Then I need to get my point in a way that will be remembered, and it's not always healthy, but that's me. I know, I'm working on it. So yeah, let's move on. So final point in step 4 is reframe, reframe, reframe to keep on track. So keep reframing. Okay, I don't understand it. Can you help me understand something in a better way? Now, this mediator, apart from having a mediator, I really love using metaphors, parables, just stories, which is like, oh, when you do this, it's like the spaceship has landed here and it doesn't understand my language because you're from Mars, and I need you to understand my language. So I don't speak Martian, you don't speak Earth. Can we use sign language? Can we do something? So we're using metaphors and parables and things like that. So go from truth to perceptions. So just because you have your truth and the other person has their truth, if you hold on to those, then you're saying these are my truths. How about we change it to perception from blame, and then instead of saying this is my truth, this is my perception of things. Instead of blame, this is uh, my contribution. So instead of pointing fingers, I'm like, how can I contribute to ease the situation? From accusations to feelings, etc., and etc. And then the last step, step 5, is problem solving. Invent options that meet each side's most important concerns and interests. At the end of the day, you want to address that root cause, the big thing that has created all these things, because all the others are layers. So try and pick one big one and try and work slowly, chipping at it, with looking for standards of what should happen. So you set a standard now that, okay, when so and so happens, this is the standard of how we're going to deal with things. When this, stuff like that. Keep in mind the standard of mutual caretaking. Relationships that always go one way rarely last. So mutual caretaking, what a nice way of putting it. Both sides are taking care of the other's interests and their standards. It's a nice way to put it. Talk about how to keep communication open as you go forward. And yeah, so those are the quick steps, the checklist. Now let's get back to the top and let's get down to the nitty gritty. Now I've kept my notes as neat as possible, but you can find another great summary in that PDF link there. Now the 3 conversations that happen was the first thing, the what happened, the feelings conversation, and the identity. So what happened conversation is the most difficult conversations involve disagreement about what has happened or what should happen. Who said what, who did what, who's right, who meant what, and who is to blame. So understand that is your perception of things. The feeling conversation is, are my feelings valid? Are they appropriate? Should I acknowledge or deny them? Or put them aside on the table or check them at the door? What do I do about the other person's feelings? What if they are angry or hurt? These feelings are not addressed directly in the conversation, but they leak anyway. There's certain things you're like, oh yeah, but you said it in that tone, and I felt like this. And not only that, but we have our own past. Uh, I wouldn't call it psychosis. I would call it our own past stories, which are not part of this story. But when certain things happen, we are more sensitive or tender to those things happening. So we would react in different ways. So that's another thing. Those feelings come up. So like feelings is just like comes out on wholesale. Now the third conversation is the identity conversation. This is a conversation we each have with ourselves about what this situation means to us. We conduct an internal debate over whether this means we are competent or incompetent, a good person, bad person, worthy of love or unlovable, what impact it have what impact might it have on our self-image, self-esteem, our future, our well-being, all these things. Our answers to these questions determines a large part of whether we feel balanced during the conversation or whether we feel off-center and anxious. Now, every time I get angry, every time I feel anxious, off-center, all this, when I lose that center, when I go off-center, go off away from myself, it's because of mostly not feeling valid. So, what was this? I feel like I'm not a good person, I'm not competent, and how it means to me. So, like, I had this affirmation whether back when people used to give me feedback and I took it really negatively, or back in those days I was very anxious or used to go through anxiety. So, I had to set up these tools where I was like, no matter what they say, I know I'm a good person. I know I am loved. I know I'm worthy of attention and all that. What they're saying, I just need to strip away the bits that are not useful, strip away the things that they're not right about, strip away these things, and then take the important bit and work on myself to fix that. Because if it's pinching me somewhere, that means I still need to work on something, whether it's their feedback or whether it's just me being sensitive to it. Alrighty, the three fronts. We have three fronts: truth, intentions, blame. So, the truth assumption, number one, as we argue vociferously of our view, we often fail to question our crucial assumption upon our whole stance on the conversation is built. I am right and you are wrong. This simple assumption causes endless grief because it's so black and white. There is one hitch: I'm not right. They are not about what is true, they are about what is important. Uh, what do they mean by they? Anyway, Paras note: something I say about relationships, either one person wins or is right, or the relationship wins and is right. So whenever I'm arguing with my partner and it turns into a competition, I bring up this reminder that is the relationship going to win or are one of us going to win? Because if one of us wins, the relationship loses. Number two, the second front is the intention invention. Did you yell at me to hurt my feelings or merely emphasize your point? What I think about your intentions will affect how I think about you and ultimately how our conversation goes. And I have a big weakness with this one because I will uh, assume a lot of intentions because of my past stories, like I've talked about. We assume we know the intentions of others when we don't. Worse still, when we are unsure about someone's intentions, we often to decide they are bad. And this is my issue. Sometimes people act with mixed intentions. Sometimes they act with no intentions, or at least none related to us. And sometimes they act on good intentions that nonetheless hurt us. So it's just tenderoni, tender spots. The blame frame is the third front. Most difficult conversations focus significant attention on who is to blame for the mess we're in. And this is a big mistake. We don't care where the ball lands as long as it doesn't land on us. But talking about fault is similar to talking about truth. It produces disagreement, denial, and learning little learning. So you don't learn much with placing blame. It evokes fears of punishment and insists on an either or answer. Nobody wants to be blamed, especially unfairly. So our energy goes into defending ourselves. And this is what you don't want to get into. Like you can say, okay, this is the sentence. Let's deconstruct it. A good way to would be saying, what blame can I take from this? What responsibility? In fact, change the word from blame to responsibility. What can I be responsible for here? Okay, I am responsible for not letting you finish when you are trying to make a point, and I need to listen to understand instead of listen to respond. Okay, so nobody wants to blame. Talking about blame distracts us from exploring why things went wrong and how we might correct them from going forward. Focusing instead of understanding. Um, I don't think it talks in here, but there's a very nice quote, and I've talked about it in a few videos previously. Uh, More curiosity, less judgment. Be curious about, oh, why did this happen? Focus instead of understanding. The contribution system allows us to learn about real causes of the problem and to work on correcting them. The distinction between blame and contribution may seem subtle, but it is a distinction worth working to understand because it will make a significant difference in your ability to handle difficult conversations. And you just, it just changes so much because, first of all, just the fact that you're going to be curious is already letting the other person know that you're not listening to respond. And that's one of the biggest things, at least my biggest pet peeves, is when I'm trying to make a point. I've not even finished the sentence and I'm already getting my rebuttals. And I'm like, so you're not even taking time to absorb what I've said to give me a proper response. You just want to be defensive. So ask questions and try to understand why we argue and why it doesn't help. We think they are the problem. Yep, they think we are the problem. We make each other sense. We each make sense in our own story of what happened. Arguing blocks us from exploring each other's stories. Arguing without understanding is unpersuasive. Move from certainty to curiosity. The way into their story, embrace both stories, adopt the and stance. Now, in improvisation, all these comedians, what they do is yes and. So, whenever someone's finished a story, they go yes and. So, yes means yes, your story is true, and this is my story. Or, and this is so and so, instead of no but. They can feel one thing and you can feel something totally opposite. Exceptions are I am right. In this case, caught daughter smoking, that's the example, and giving bad news like firings and breakups. Okay, disentangle impact and intent. So we have impact, we have intent. Separating impact from intentions requires us to be aware of the automatic leap from I was hurt to you intended to hurt me. You can make this distinction by asking yourself three questions. One, action. What did the other person actually say or do? Two, impact. What was the impact of this on me? Three, assumptions. Based on the impact, what assumption am I making about what the other person intended? You're making an assumption of what they intended. And that's what's leading you into troubles. Share the impact on you. So say, when you say this is the impact it had on me. And then inquire about the intention. It had this impact on me. Did you mean to hurt me? Did you mean to say this to dig at my old wounds? Blah, 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 blah. Listen for feelings and reflect your intentions. When we find ourselves being accused of bad intentions, we have a strong tendency to want to defend ourselves. That is not what I intended. Oh, you think that's a good thing to say, especially to reassure the person, but we are defending our intentions and our character. However, as we've seen, starting here leads to trouble. Why? Because we're already defending our character when we need to focus on bigger things. Listen past the accusation for the feeling. Accusations about our bad intention is always made up of two separate ideas. We had bad intentions, the other person was frustrated, hurt, or embarrassed. Okay? Don't pretend they aren't saying the first. You'll want to respond to it, but neither should you ignore the second. And if you start by listening and acknowledging the feelings and then return to the questions of intention, it will make your conversation significantly easier and more constructive. So start by listening, then you acknowledge them for everything they've said, no matter how you're feeling. Like you're feeling, oh, this person must have tried to hurt me, and da da da. But you ignore that, acknowledge what they're saying. Say, okay, I see. Oh, so you're saying this. This is how it felt. Okay. And then, but you also say that part which kind of hurt me or felt bad. Did you mean to say that? Did you mean to say something else? What's going on there? Be open to reflecting on the complexity of your intentions. Now, this gets complex. When it comes time to consider your intentions, try to avoid the tendency to say, my intentions are pure. Because once you get into the balls rolling and stuff, you're going to say things, you're going to try and throw some painful things in there, you're going to say some other ulterior motive things. We usually think that about ourselves, and sometimes it's true, but often, as we've seen, intentions are more complex. Blame is about judging and looks backward. So, again, don't judge, be curious. Contribution is about understanding and looking forward. So don't look back and judge, look forward and contribute. Contribution is joint and interactive. We are all contributing something to get better at this situation we are in. Okay, it's three misconceptions about contribution. Three misconceptions. I should focus only on my contribution. So that's a misconception. Putting aside blame means putting aside my feelings. That's a misconception. Exploring contribution means blaming the victim. Yeah. Uh, I don't know how important that was in this whole thing, but anyway, it's good to know. Okay. So, four hard to spot contributions: avoiding until now, being unapproachable. Four hard to spot contributions. If you're being unapproachable, how is that a contribution? Intersection, problematic role assumptions. I am just going to keep moving from there because I don't get it myself. Two tools for spotting contribution is role reversal and the observer's insight. Both of these are going to take you out of your story because you're putting yourself in the other person's shoes, or you're the observer observing both of them. Map the contribution system. Okay, so what are they contributing? What am I contributing? List each person's contributions. Who else is involved? Take responsibility for your contribution early. Help them understand their contribution. Make your observation and reasoning explicit. Clarify what you would have them do differently. So recently I'm going to be helping someone, a few people who are having some troubles, and my biggest recommendation for them was just make two small changes. One is focus on the remaining bonds that are still there, try to strengthen those. And the other one is say what you are going to do that will make the other person happy or make things better for them to reconnect these bonds. So that's contribution. Now, don't vent, describe feelings carefully. Frame feelings back into the problem. Express the full spectrum of your feelings. I kind of don't agree, but I'm not too much into feelings like that. Anyway, don't evaluate, just share. Express your feelings without judging, attributing, or blaming. don't monopolize, as both sides have strong feelings at the same time. An easy reminder: say I feel. Now, I statements are very important. When you're doing this, you did this. When you do this, so I've had two mediations in my previous work where I had to address certain things with my manager, and I got my BM to mediate. I made sure wrote everything down, and writing down is very important. Uh, and then I replaced all the you, wherever I was saying you, when you do this, you do that, into when so and so happens, when I am uh, questioned about all the things that weren't done, I feel that all the things I did up until that point were ignored, or like I didn't do anything. It makes me feel like that. So those are my feelings. I. When so and so happens, I feel I would prefer this to happen. So you're removing that you completely out of that conversation. You. Personally, I don't like that, because when someone does it to me, it hits a soft spot for me. So I try to be mindful when I'm having my conversations with others. Now, the importance of acknowledgement. I cannot tell you how important this one is. Like, when I worked in the prisons, just acknowledging the person, whatever he's venting, even if he's swearing or whatever, I'm like, I understand you're having a problem. Can you tell me more about it so I can help you in the right ways? Because if you keep swearing, the officers are going to see, and you're going to end up getting negatives. So, what does it mean to acknowledge someone's feeling? It means letting the other person know that what they have said has made an impression in you, that the feelings matter to you, and that you are working to understand them. Wow, you might say, I never knew you felt that way. Or, I kind of assumed you were feeling that, and I'm glad you felt comfortable enough with me to share it. Or, it sounds like this is really important to you. So let them know that you think understanding their perspective is important, and that you are trying to do so. Recently, I was trying to explain myself to someone who was having trouble with someone else, and I'm like, this is the pro. And even before I finish, like, no, I don't believe in that. Like, I see where the problem is. There's no active listening going on. Bef- uh, so before I give you a sense of what is going on with me, this is another example. Tell me more about your feelings that I talk down to you. Sometimes feelings are all that matter. So, look, acknowledgement and feelings, I think, are different, but I guess they've connected both together. So, we'll leave it at that. Now, three core identities. We've already covered this. Am I competent? Am I a good person? Am I worthy of love? The vulnerable identities, uh, the all or nothing syndrome. So, that same person who just blocked me or just interrupted me and didn't do the active listening, they wanted all or nothing. I was like, these are your ideals, these are your beliefs. You don't want to be flexible on these. So that's a all or nothing syndrome. How are you going to find a new channel, because the ones you've been using are not working? And what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing to experience or expect a different result. So that's a really bad, vulnerable identity to hold on to. Others are denial, exaggeration. Oh, exaggeration. I cannot tell you how much I don't like this one for personal reasons. We we let their feedback define who we are. So now it's time to ground your identity. Become aware of your identity issues. Complexify your identity. Adopt the and stance. Um, there are some other exercises I can recommend, which are who asking yourself. I think there are three questions: who am I as a person? What is my purpose here? And what do I stand for? When you answer these, write three things for each. So three things for the three questions, and you'll get a better idea of your identity. I'm a father. I like helping people with all the things I've learned. And I like taking care of the planet so it's good for my offspring and the future. That's my identity. How does all of these dramas connect to all that? Three things to accept about yourself. You will make mistakes. Your intentions are complex. You have contributed to the problem. And if you have a problem, you're part of it. Because if you don't have a problem, you figured it out, or you know how to accept it, to change it, to challenge it, whatever it is. Learning to regain your balance. Let go of trying to control their reaction, and they are going to react. Prepare for their response. How are you going to judo it? How are you going to be like, every time I lose my center, I remind myself, what would the real Paras do? The real Paras is naughty. He likes being like Krishna. He likes being like Greg Sumner, a playful sense of play. How am I going to judo it? So I judoed something which used to be a big problem into a comedy session or like a circus. If it's something you know is not going to change, in my case, it was an elder who's an elder now. They're just not going to change. So I turn it into a comedy. I'm like, if it was some public humiliation thing, I'm just like, yeah, he does that. That's just him. Just leave him alone, or stuff like that. Yeah, like give a hand. That's what he's done. Stuff. You know, making it fun, because if it's going to happen and you what you resist persists. We learned that in Art of Living. So yeah, letting go of their reaction, prepare for their response. Imagine it's 3 months or 10 years from now. What are you going to do? Are they still there? Are they important to you? Are they still around? Another one I would do is, especially when it comes to parents. Right now, I'm thinking of parents because that's that example I gave. For the first 20 years or so, your parents took care of you no matter how many tantrums you threw, no matter how many nappies you had to change, and so much drama. Imagine the drama you gave in your teens, all that. They had to deal with all that. Now it's your turn to deal with all their stuff. And finally, to regain balance, just take a break. Just break away from it. So, three kinds of conversation that don't make sense. Is the real conflict inside you? Is there a better way to address the issue than talking about it? Do you have purposes that make sense? I don't know what they're all talking about, but while they're talking about, is there a better way to address the issue than talking about it? Yes, there is. Back to this parent situation. I was in a situation where I couldn't get a word in, and that brought a rage in me. That made me a very angry person because I wanted to be acknowledged. I wanted my feelings to be known, all that. So, first, turned it into a comedy, all the things which I couldn't change, the things I could change. I was like, how can I put it in a pill that they will be able to digest? What are their values, and how can I sandwich it in their values to get it through? I connected with the person through comedy, through very specific like music and things like that. And either comedy or the music had messages in them. Or if I send the DVDs, they would have these comedies, then some knowledge, some things about how to change your thinking, stuff like that. So that's one way. Email is another way where you just get it all out. But when I did my emails, the system I would use was first blurt it all out. Your first draft is just you throwing up everything onto electronics. Then, as previously mentioned, remove the you bits, remove the bits which are hurtful, remove the bits that are not useful, change, filter. I can get deeper into the filter thing if you want me to, but I'll leave it there. Next thing we get to is remember you can't change other people. Don't focus on short-term relief at a long-term cost. Yeah, you may be able see like if you keep saying, "Oh yeah, we've talked to them, but they're never going to change." Obviously, they're never going to change. They're not going to change after a discussion or two, or no matter how many times you do. If someone's not going to change, you need to find another long-term uh, solution, contribution. Don't hit and run. Letting go, adopting some liberating assumptions. So adopt these thinkings and just accept certain things. Okay, people are not going to change here. They've been like this for all their life. Me talking about it and being silly enough to expect things to change just because I've said it now. It's like their groove is already set in this. Even if they are going to change, it's going to take quite a few attempts to come out of that groove and make a different groove. You have to help them with that. It's not my responsibility to make things better. It's my responsibility to do my best. And this is a problem I've seen recently where someone was just trying to keep everything at ease and hurting themselves even more instead of doing their best, which means sometimes just swallowing that emotion or whatever it is just to get things done. But anyway, that's a different story. Uh, they have limitations too. So, like you have your limitations, they have theirs. This conflict is not who I am. Um, letting go doesn't mean I no longer care. So, there are times where I've had to love from a distance because that's the only way I could do it. Imagine uh, what's a good metaphor? Like when they put that muzzle on the dog, or when the dog has to be caged for its own good and the good of other people, but you still love it, you still feed it, you still take care of it. You just have to keep some kind of barrier between them and you for your own safety and others. Um, and create a learning conversation. How are you going to create a learning conversation? By asking, tell me your story, tell me how you see things. Okay, if you raise it, three purposes that work: learning their story. Oh, so here we go. Expressing your views and feelings, problem solving together. So I think it's repeating quite a few times, which I don't mind because I like washing this knowledge continuously until it gets inside. Why our typical openings don't help. We begin inside our own story. We trigger their identity conversation from the start. So don't start with your own story. I want to talk to you about something. There's certain things. Is there something on your mind? Do you want to tell me? How come you know there's a distance between us, or you know there's some friction happening? What's happening? Okay. Now this is another kind of checklist which says the title is Getting Started. So one, begin from the third story. I like this. For example, in a battle between bicycles and cars on the streets of the city, the third story would be told by the city planners who can understand each side's concern and why each group is frustrated with the other. When tensions arise in a marriage, the third story might be the one offered by a marriage counselor. In a dispute between friends, the third story may be the perspective of a mutual friend who sees each side as having valid concerns that need to be addressed. And I've been recently think like a mediator. Yeah, I've recently just been in one of these situations. I'm still working on it, and it's good because both sides are happy that I got involved, because they're like, okay, it's good to see a different perspective where someone's not shouting and the other one's letting one side doesn't want to let the other talk. The other side, when they do talk, they're shouting or getting emotional. They don't have a good grasp of their own uh, way of speaking. So both sides are getting to get things out, understand each other's sides, and I get to give some feedback on the things I've learned from it. So if they start the conversation, you can still step to the third story. So even if you're going to say your story and you want to be the ones initiating it, why not you be the one who starts with the third story saying, look, let's put let's put both our stories as a play. This is this person here who's feeling this. This is this person here who's feeling this. What can happen for these two to get together or to strengthen the remaining bonds or whatever it is that they need to work on? Extend an invitation. So describe the purpose and invite, don't impose it on them. Make them your partner in figuring it out and be persistent. So if they don't agree or if they're not ready to talk about it, just because you're ready doesn't mean they are. Say at some point, this is the purpose of the conversation I would like to have, and let me know when you're free, when we can do it. And there is somewhere, if it's not in here, I'll tell you now. Before you have a conversation, these people I'm trying to help, they don't even know how to have a conversation. So they have to talk about the conversation of how to have the conversation in the first place. So the question would be, I wonder if it would make sense revisiting conversations that went wrong. Say, can we just take a bite of this one? The purpose is only this one topic, and I just want to stick to this. Whenever something else comes up, let's try and be aware and mindful to cut all that out and just focus on this little piece. Okay? We're going to have the desserts, we're going to have the extras, the rice and the naan later. Right now, I just want to focus on the starters and just the chicken wings. Talk about how to talk about it. Oh, there we go. A map for going forward. Third story, their story, your story. So, what a nice map. First, start with the third story. These are the two pieces. This is what's going on between them. Now, why don't you tell me your story of this piece? And then I'll tell you my story of this piece. What to talk about? The three conversations. What happened? Feeling, identity. Explore where each story comes from, share the impact on you, take responsibility for your contributions, describe feelings, reflect on identity issues, how to talk about it, which is listening, expression, and problem solving. So, listening comes first because this listening, this active listening, a lot of people, especially when I came back from Kenya, I was like, oh man, so many conversation threads just left open and not closed. My OCD was kind of playing up. Oh, listening to them helps them listen to you. Now, if you show that you're taking things on board, okay. Now, can I give you now? Now that I've heard your side, can I tell you where I felt different in these cases? The stance of curiosity, how to listen from the inside out. Forget the words, focus on authenticity. The commentator in your head, become more aware of your internal voice, that commentator in your head. Because whenever this we learned in Art of Living, whenever someone's talking in your head, there's always a yes or no to every sentence being said. Yes, I agree. No, I don't. Yes, I agree. I disagree. No, like the way I'm doing it with this thing also. Uh, don't turn it off. Turn it up. Manage your internal voice, but turn it up to yourself, not outside. Yeah, because it's your internal voice. Negotiate your way to curiosity. Don't listen. Talk. So keep talking. Talk, but using curiosity. Okay, so tell me more about this. So tell, and you felt like this. And usually it's mostly just feelings. Oh yeah, she did this to me. She didn't. I was expecting this. Oh, so you were expecting it, uh, and it didn't happen. So what have you learned about expectation? Well, that's like throwing it back at them, but you're still asking. So in the future, would you like this to happen? In the future, would you like that to happen? It's already happened now, so Do you still feel like you need an apology? It would be good to have an apology. Now we get to three skills: inquire to learn, paraphrase for clarity, and acknowledge their feelings. Looks like we've talked about this already, but we can keep doing it again and again. Inquire to learn. Don't make statements disguised as questions. Now, this is where, when you attack sometimes, like that Jordan Peterson one where it's like, so you're saying, whenever he said something, that other lady was like, oh, so you're saying this. No, no, no. Don't disguise your questions. Don't use questions to cross examine. Ask open ended questions. Now, I don't know if I should say this, but my partner, she will turn questions into statements, like make them sound like statements, like, oh, so you're saying I'm a liar, right? I'm like, no, it's not what I said. I'm just saying this is this. Don't use questions. Okay, ask open-ended questions. Ask for more concrete information. Can you tell me more about what your story was over here? Because I'm not getting it. My story seems to be different. I want to understand more. Create a learning conversations. Example, can you say a little more about how you see things? How you see things. I like that. Can you say a little more about how you see things? What information have might you have that I don't? How do you see it differently? What impact have my action? Why does this keep sleeping? What impact have my actions had on you? Uh, can you say a little more about why you think this is my fault? Why are you reacting to something I did? How do you feel about all this? Say more about why this is important to you. What would I mean? What would it mean if, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting tired now. What would it mean to you if that happened? Make it safe for them not to answer. Okay, so make it safe for them not to answer if they don't want to answer. Just say it's okay if you don't want to answer, but what would it mean to you if that happened? So that was the first one, inquire to learn. Number two was paraphrase for clarity. Check your understanding, show that you've heard, create a learning conversation. I love doing this. And acknowledge their feelings. My note in there is big one for me. Answer the invisible question. How to acknowledge. And the order matters. Acknowledge before problem solving. So acknowledge, okay, I acknowledge this, so and so. Uh, now I think I have some solutions for you. Acknowledging is not agreeing. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand. Remember, what was it? Can you say a little more of how you see things? So, we can rephrase that into when you acknowledge but don't agree is, now I understand how you see things. Yes, yes. Okay, that makes sense to me. Now I know. A final thought: empathy is a journey, not a destination. Remember, if you're having all these dramas and stuff, I've worked with bosses, especially like my boss now. I love having these difficult conversations with her because it's a it's a process. We'll talk about some things, we'll reconfigure certain things, improve. Then we'll be like, okay, how did this week feel? How did it feel today? Do you think that was right? Should we change this to that? Da, 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 da. So stuff like that. Failure to express yourself keeps you out of the relationship. Feel entitled, feel encouraged, but don't feel obligated. So express yourself and be entitled and encouraged to express yourself, but don't be obligated. Start with what matters most. Say what you mean. Don't make them guess. I mean that I need this. I mean that I was not happy about how this went down and I want to change. I don't want to be treated like this, or I don't want to see this. I mean that in the mornings, I, I would rather not have this happen every day where I'm questioned about how much work I do. Don't rely on subtext. Avoid easing in. Don't make your story simplistic. Now, there's a video, I think it's Tim Ferriss talking to Sheila Heen about how to navigate a difficult conversation. And then we get to telling your story with clarity, the three guidelines. Don't present your conclusions as the truth. Yep. And in my case, I call it my reality and their reality. Because when me and my partner are arguing, I'll be like, yeah, but you have to see things as this is my reality. You can't just shut me down when I'm telling you my truth. This is the way my reality. This is how I saw things. It happened in my reality. So you have to present. You have to accept that. Share where your conclusions come from. I concluded to this because so and so happened to me in the past, and when this happens again, I feel like this is what you meant. Da, 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 da. And that's your story. Don't exaggerate with always and never. Oh my God, this is another one. This is another one of those recurring arguments in my relationship. So, always and never do a pretty good job of conveying frustration, but they have two serious drawbacks. Firstly, it is seldom strictly accurate that someone criticizes every time, or that they haven't at some point said something positive. So in this case, they must have said something negative. Using such words invites an argument over the question of frequency. That is not true. I said several nice things to you last year when you won the inter-office new idea competition. A response that will most likely increase your exasperation. Always and never also make it harder rather than easier for the other person to consider changing their behavior because you've already put them in the always or never box. So why would they want to change? In fact, always or never suggests that change will be difficult or impossible. How dare you put me in that impossible, difficult box? So a better approach is to proceed as if, however hard it may be to believe, the other person is simply unaware of the impact of their actions on you. And being a good person would certainly wish to change their behavior once they became aware of it. You could say something like, when you tell me my suit reminds you of wrinkled old curtains, I feel hurt. Criticizing my clothes feels like an attack on my judgment and makes me feel incompetent. If you can also suggest what you would wish to hear instead, so much the better. I wish I could feel more often like you believe in me. It would really feel great to hear even something as simple as, I think that color looks good on you. Anything as long as it was positive. Can you do that for me? The key to communicate your feelings in a way that invites and encourages the recipient to consider new ways of behaving. So you're using kindness, kill them with kindness, rather than suggesting they're a schmuck and it's too bad there's nothing they can do about it. Okay, give them room to change. Help them understand you. Ask them to paraphrase back. Ask how they see it differently and why. So, next one is you can reframe anything. Now, this is the reframe. The you, me, you can reframe anything. The you, me, and I can try to understand you, and you can try to understand me. I think it meant this way. It's always the right time to listen. Be persistent about listening. It takes two to agree. Gather information and test your perceptions. Say what is still missing. Say what would persuade you. Ask what, if anything, would persuade them. Ask their advice Invent options. Now, when you ask the advice, that's a really good one also, because you're asking them for their expertise, which makes them feel valued, which makes them feel important, and makes them feel like a good person. Because a bad person, you wouldn't ask a bad person for advice, right? Invent options. Ask what standards should apply. So find out those standards, as we spoke about earlier. The principles of mutual caretaking. Oh, such a nice thing. Mutual caretaking. If you still can't agree, consider your alternatives. Now, putting it all together, see below checklist for more details, which we've already talked about, but let's go into 1. Prepare by walking through the 3 conversations. 2. Check your purpose and decide whether to raise it or purposes. Number 3. Start from the 3rd story. Number 4. Explore their story and yours. And 5. Problem solving. Expression. Speaking for yourself with clarity and power. Orators need not apply. Um, you're entitled. Yes, you. Failure to express yourself keeps you out of the relationship. Feel entitled, feel encouraged, but don't feel obligated. I feel like I've already talked about this. Start with what matters most. Say what you mean. Don't make them guess. Don't rely on subtexts. Avoid easing in. And when you say speak with clarity and everything, just remember speak kind, speak your feelings, speak your I statements. Don't make your story simplistic. Use the me, me, and. This memo, example is, this memo shows incredible sensitivity or creativity, and at the same time, it's so badly organized that it makes me crazy. Okay, so this memo shows incredible creativity is me saying something, and it makes me incredibly crazy. I'll say you wrongly. So, in an attempt to be clear, you wrongly say, your memo is so badly organized it makes me crazy. Or worse, your memo makes me crazy. I don't know if that's a good example, but I'll leave it there. Problem solving, take the lead. Reframe, reframe, reframe. You can reframe anything. The you and me and the I can listen and understand what you have to say, and you can listen and understand what I have to say. Just keep reframing to that frame that I am capable. I'm so capable at giving you advice. I'm sure I'm capable at dealing with this. It's always the right time to listen, name the dynamic, make the trouble explicit. Now what? Begin to problem solve. It takes two to agree. Uh, gather gather information and test your perception. Propose crafting a test. Like I said, with me and my boss, we'll test something out. We'll be like, did this work? That work? Yes, this worked. So we'll stick to that. These things we can still work on. Let's problem solve, brainstorm, whatever. Say what is still missing. Something is still missing. Yes, I do like that you're doing this for me, but I would really love a little bit more. If you just called me this, if you just call me at this time, if you were more consistent with doing it every day, or communicating with me why you can't do it, or that you can't in time, so I'm not just waiting there. Say what would persuade you. Ask if anything would persuade them. Ask their advice. Invent options. Ask what their standards should apply. The principle of mutual caretaking. If you still can't agree, consider your alternatives. Now, the last thing before going to the table of contents is I've shared a link there of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse when it comes to uh, relationships breaking down. And this was a study done by the Gottmans, mm, Dr. John Gottman, over I don't know how many years. Uh, let me just quickly tell you what they are: criticism, defensiveness, disrespect or contempt, and stonewalling. Now, contempt was shown to be one of the biggest ones, but please have a look at that link to see how you can create new maps for you guys to create bonds, be more uh, collaborative with each other, stuff like that. And even though it's about marriage, I think it works for nearly all relationships where you're getting to know the other person again. Pretend like you've broken up with this person you've had a bad problem with, and start a new relationship, imagining this new person. And over to contents now. We have the usual, then the problem, sorting out the three conversations, then shift to a learning stance, the what happened conversation. Stop arguing about who is right. Explore each other's stories. Don't assume what they mean. Disentangle intent from impact. Abandon blame. Map the contribution system. The feeling conversation. Have your feelings or they will have you. The identity conversation. Ground your identity. Ask yourself what is at stake. Create a learning conversation. What's your purpose? When to raise it and when to let go. Getting started. Begin from the third story. Learning, listen from the inside out. Expression, speak for yourself with clarity and power. Problem solving, take the lead, putting it all together, and then you have the roadmap to this difficult conversations, and then a note on some relevant organization. Oh, we don't need that. Now, at the bottom there, I have another How to Have a Difficult Conversation by Michael Grinder. And then finally, I have shared a difficult conversation I had a few years back with someone who was kind of a backseat driver and rude, especially coming into our home and just the way they conducted themselves. So I'll tell you a quick story on that. So first, I put everything down, threw in. I was like, bad words, whatever I wanted to say. How dare you come into my house and act like this, talk like this. Next time you do that, I'm going to just throw you out and whatever, whatever, whatever. Yeah. Then I peeled it off. I was like, discussed what happened, then reaffirm what I want out of this conversation. I want that this person not be a backseat driver anymore. We know what we're doing in our house and relationship. We don't need you, and we don't need you to use these words. Anyway, this person has said a few times that they need to be told to STFU, shut the hell up. So they know they can get that way because they're trying to help, but it's just a bit too uh, uncivilized when it comes to doing those things. Yeah. I then reorganize everything. When my you'll see over there, you re-explain how you feel when certain things happen. When this happened, I felt like this. And then ask them, do they have anything they need to get off their chest or why they've acted like that? Then offer solutions or tell them what is expected of. If you're in my reality, I expect a certain way of behavior. If that's not going to happen, I'm going to take you out either by exiting myself or just not being associated with you in the future. In this case, I kept reminding them, like, look, my partner really values you as a friend. I think you're a very good friend, and I'm sure you had very good intent with all this. It just was not needed, and I really appreciate, finally, show appreciation that they were willing to have this conversation and take things on board. And that's about it, folks. Let's see if there's any questions. No questions, and I shall leave it there then. And I'll see you in the next one.